Hi, this is Tazeen Bukhari, and I'll be presenting with Ms. Fiza Shaukat. Our topic for today is Overview, Gap Assessment, Implementation, and Future Roadmap for Medical Device Regulation in Pakistan. The team that we worked with was from USP, Mr. Khalid Bukhari, and Dr. Waqas Ahmed, a few of the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan representatives, Mr. Arif Rauf and Amir Fakhruddin, and Tom Judd and Adriana. So medical device regulation is relatively new in Pakistan, and only fairly recently, that is in 2012, medical devices were recognized as a separate entity. It was not until 2017 when the present rule were implemented and phase-wise regulation of medical devices was started in Pakistan. The presentation compares the medical device regulation throughout the world with Pakistan and uses WHO Global Benchmarking Tool for gap assessment. The gaps were shared with DRAP over the past year and various strategies were implemented. The activities that were carried out are also highlighted in the presentation. The primary purpose of regulation is to protect health, ensure safety and efficacy, and performance. Most countries usually have a very strong regulatory system when it comes to drugs, and then they regulate medical devices. To effectively regulate medical devices, regulate safety and performance, throughout the lifetime, it is essential that we start from pre-market to placement on the market, and then post-market surveillance. Effective regulatory system is only achieved by responsible regulator, manufacturer, and importer, whether it is local or overseas. Hence, to regulate medical devices efficiently, regional and global collaborations and harmonizations are done through IMBRF, Asian Harmonization Working Party, and Pan-American Network of Regulators. Next slide. Today, we'll be discussing the regulatory structures for Saudi Arabia, USA, Europe, India, Malaysia, and Japan in terms of their regulatory structure, device classification, device approval, and post-market surveillance. We will be starting with Pakistan. As discussed, the present regulation are implemented in the Medical Device 2017 under the Draft Act 2012 and are regulated by Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan. It is divided into Class A, B, C, and D, D being the highest. Class A only has a notification procedure, while others go through thorough evaluation by the Medical Device Board, consisting of clinical and technical experts of various fields. Although the rules talk about establishment, maintenance, and implementation of post-market surveillance, but currently there's no such procedure and only restricted to a voluntarily reporting of adverse effect. In Saudi Arabia, medical devices are regulated by Saudi FDA and are based on the IMBRF, next slide, and GHTF requirement. Medical devices are divided into Class 1, 2A, 2B, and Class 3 and 4, with 4 being the highest. It has the electronic submission MBIR, and NCMBR is responsible for post-market surveillance. Next slide. In USA, Center for Disease and Radiological Health under the FDA regulates medical devices. The risk classes are Class 1, 2, 2A and B, and Class 3. Class 3 being the highest. Class 1s are approved without a preclinical or clinical data, Class 2 through to 510K clearance, and Class 3 with pre-market authorization. Post-market surveillance is done under the Safety Medical Devices Act 1990 with health facilities reporting adverse effects. In the EU, notified bodies, 70 in particular, grant the Conformity European, which allows devices to be marketed in the Europe. Class 1, Class 1 Special, Class 2A, 2B, and Class 3. Class 3 being the highest risk. Similar to US FDA, devices are approved, Class 1 devices are approved on the basis of manufacturer declaration of the conformity, while others are require the notified body for a literature review. For post-market surveillance, competent authorities in the EU are in charge, and UDMED is a database of medical devices. In India, medical devices are not formally regulated until January 2012, and that they will be regulated under the Draft Act Medical Device Rules 2012 under the Drug and Cosmetic 1940 Act. The risk classes are as per the GHTF guidelines, Class A, B, C, and D, D being the highest. Regulation will be done through an online platform called Shugam, and post-market surveillance will come once the regulation starts. For Malaysia, medical devices are regulated through the Medical Device Act 2012. The risk classes are A, B, C, and D, and as in the case with Pakistan, the regulation makes use of gaps Post-market surveillance is done by the NRA and medical device authorities. Authorized officers carry out surveillance for potential violation of the Medical Act 2012. For Japan, medical devices are regulated through the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. Through PDMA. The risk classes are 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 are the notification devices, 2 are certification and are reviewed by the registered certified body and PDMA, while 3 are special control devices and again reviewed through RCB and PMDA. All documentation is translated in Japanese and adverse effects are reported to PDMA and JMHLW. Now, Fiza will be talking about GBT2. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Tazeen. So going into, after this rigorous exercise of going through all of the countries and the current regulatory authorities, 8 factors were identified and then compared and contrasted on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being the worst and 10 being the best of where these countries lie in. The 8 factors identified was legal provision, policy and strategic planning, leadership and crisis management, transparency, accountability, quality and risk management, resources, organizations, and governments. Out of all of these 8 factors, 7 were important and were something that were considered in order to be to identify what were the most primary cases where Pakistan had to improve and what were the major gaps. As you can see from this scale, information management system and CABS evaluation is something that Pakistan needs to really start off on compared to some of the advanced regulatory authorities, USA, Japan, EU. And some cases where Pakistan has already started working is the private sector engagement and resources. While has still started to and still needs a little bit of improvement in the post-market surveillance and medical device testing labs along with the maintenance management system. So this is just a comparatively gap analysis of Pakistan compared to other countries on the factors identified. Along with that, they were Pakistan, due to those factors, lies on NRA level 2, according to the WHO GBT tool, which is a global benchmarking tool used for WHO to regulate the authorities around the world. NRA level 2 seeing that Pakistan has partially performed essential regulatory functions, and in 2 to 3 years vision is it can move towards the NRA level 4, which is that it can operate on an advanced level of performance and continuous improvement. Some of the short-term and medium-term and long-term steps for Pakistan to reach NRA level 4 is number 1, planning for high priority equipment, for refurbished, for EU and device-specific policies. For medium terms, have an integration management system, testing, post-market surveillance, and maintenance management. Along with long-term vision is having the formation of CABS, private sector engagement, and business enabling environment. In order for the business enabler long-term roadmap to be accomplished, here is a 3, 6, and 9-term month plan of the of what a draft can follow through. That is a training of ISO 13485, also training of their stakeholders, and also facilitation of local manufacturers that they could perform in order for the long-term roadmap to be accomplished. Out of the short-term steps, there were already a few instances that me, Tazeen, and USP have already worked with DRAP to facilitate some of this documentation. Number 1 being the EUA issues and process. An entire process for EUA medical devices were performed for DRAP, which would help for future EUA instances for any medical devices coming into Pakistan for DRAP to make very quick decisions of how to notify them, what should be the procedure, what should their conditions be, what should the labeling and post-handling process should be. The same process was defined for refurbished equipments. At least 30 to 40% of equipments coming into Pakistan are refurbished, and that is why most of there was list of equipments was defined along with a good refurbished placements. Along with that, high priority equipment procedure was developed of what are the list of high priorities, how can they be utilized, what is the procedure, and 2 case studies were performed in terms of ventilators and IVDs. There was a deep dive into IVDs that was done, training the stakeholders in DRAP, and had conducted a 3-day training on the dosage assessment of IVDs and medical devices. In long term, the 4 factors that they need to focus on are CABS, maintenance management, certification bodies, and training of stakeholders. Thank you. Please contact us if you have any questions.